I never thought my life would come to this, standing in my own doorway, watching the man I once loved show up with another woman by his side, both of them telling me to pack my bags and get out. The strange thing is, when you're a single mom in America, you get used to people underestimating you. They think you're fragile, easy to push around, too busy working shifts and raising kids to fight back. For years, maybe they were right. I was exhausted, stretched thin, running on coffee and prayer. But that day I learned that even the weakest mother has claws when her home and children are threatened. Let me back up a little. My name's Angela, I'm 38 years old, and I live in a quiet little suburb in Dayton, Ohio. You know the kind of neighborhood, rows of modest two-story houses, kids riding bikes up and down the cracked sidewalks, flags waving from porches on the 4th of July. It's not fancy, but it's the place I fought hard to call home. I wasn't always alone. I married young, at 22, to a man named Mark. At first, he was charming, hardworking, a dreamer. But life has a way of stripping down the pretty layers and showing you the truth. The late nights at the bar. The missed rent payments. The short temper. By the time we divorced, I had 2 children, Ethan, 12, and Sophie, 9, and a heart hardened by betrayal. The house was all I had left. Not a mansion, not even close, just a 3-bedroom colonial on the edge of town, with beige siding that needed painting and a creaky front porch swing I bought secondhand. But it was ours. I kept the mortgage afloat with every spare dollar I earned, sometimes skipping meals so the kids could eat. That house wasn't just wooden shingles, it was proof that I could hold my family together when everything else had fallen apart. That's why the knock at the door that Saturday afternoon felt like a thunderclap. I had just gotten Sophie settled at the kitchen table with her crayons, while Ethan was upstairs playing video games. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door, expecting maybe a delivery driver or a neighbor. Instead, I found Mark, standing there with his smug grin, his arm draped casually around a woman I barely recognized. She was younger than me by at least a decade, with perfectly straight hair and manicured nails that glinted in the sunlight. Her perfume hit me before her words did, sweet and overwhelming, like she wanted to mark the territory she thought she owned. "Angela," Mark said, his voice carrying that practiced authority he used whenever he wanted to bulldoze me. "It's time you packed up and moved on. This house isn't yours anymore." My first thought was that I misheard him. Moved on? This wasn't some apartment I rented month to month. This was my home. My children's bedrooms were upstairs, our memories plastered on the fridge, our laughter still echoing in the walls. The woman at his side stepped forward, her red heels clicking against the porch. "We'll give you 2 weeks to get your things together," she said smoothly, like this had all been decided already. "Mark and I are ready to start our life here. It's only fair." Fair. That word cut sharper than any insult. Fair, after years of me paying the bills while he chased his selfish whims? Fair, after nights I sat up with sick kids while he stumbled home smelling like whiskey? I could feel Sophie's eyes on me from the kitchen doorway. She had crept closer, clutching a crayon in one hand like a weapon, sensing the tension. Ethan's footsteps thudded down the stairs as he came to stand behind me, his jaw tight. "Mom?" he asked softly, confusion clouding his face. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about my children watching whether I would crumble or stand tall. I straightened my back, even though my knees shook. "You don't get to tell me where to live, Mark," I said, forcing steel into my voice. "This is my home." But even as I said it, doubt gnawed at me. He sounded so certain, so casual, like maybe he knew something I didn't. Had I missed a payment? Had some legal loophole slipped past me in the divorce? The woman's smile widened, almost pitying. "Honey, you should check the paperwork. You might find you've been living on borrowed time." The blood drained from my face. Paperwork. She said it so confidently, like she was holding a secret card in her hand. Mark leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. You don't have the money or the fight left in you, Angela. Just make this easy. Pack up, and leave before we make it messy. I could feel Ethan tense behind me, his fists balling at his sides. Sophie whimpered, clutching the hem of my shirt. Every instinct in me screamed to slam the door, to shield my children, to pretend this nightmare wasn't unfolding. But another voice inside me whispered louder, don't let them win. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to look Mark straight in the eye. We'll see about that, I said evenly. I'll be talking to my lawyer. The woman scoffed, tugging at his arm. Come on, Mark. She's bluffing. But I wasn't bluffing. For the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me, not just fear, but fire. I didn't know what the paperwork said, didn't know what tricks they had up their sleeves, but I knew one thing, I was done being pushed around. As they turned and strutted down the walkway, whispering smugly to each other, I closed the door with trembling hands. Ethan looked at me with wide eyes, Sophie pressed against my side, and for the first time in a long time, I let them see the determination burning in me. They think they can take this house, I told them softly, almost like a vow. But they don't know who they're dealing with. And in that moment, I decided, if this was a battle, then I was going to fight it all the way. To understand why that house meant everything to me, you have to know what life was like in the years before Mark showed up at my door with his smug smile and his shiny new wife. Being a single mother in America isn't just hard, it's exhausting in ways you can't even explain. Every day is a juggling act, balancing bills, kids, and work, while the whole world watches to see if you'll fall. My mornings started before the sun came up. I'd get Sophie ready for school, pack Ethan's lunch, and pray the car would start on the first try. Half the time, I was running late to my shift at the grocery store, wearing the same faded polo shirt and name tag I'd worn for years. Customers barely looked at me, just another tired cashier scanning their milk and bread. After that, I'd rush across town for my second job, answering phones at a dental office. The hours blurred together. Good morning, Dr. Stevens' office, how can I help you? My smile never quite reached my eyes, but I kept it up, because a paycheck was a paycheck. On the drive home, I'd watch the gas gauge drop lower, calculating if I could stretch the tank until payday. Dinner was usually something simple, mac and cheese, frozen pizza, pasta with canned sauce. Nothing fancy, but the kids never complained. They'd just laugh around the kitchen table, their joy reminding me why I pushed myself so hard. And then there was the house. That creaky old colonial wasn't perfect, far from it. The roof leaked when it rained too hard. The basement smelled like damp cement. And every winter, I had to put plastic over the drafty windows just to keep the heat in. But when I unlocked that front door after a 12-hour day, it felt like more than walls and shingles. It felt like stability. A place where my kids could hang their drawings on the fridge and invite friends for sleepovers. A place where they could feel safe. It hadn't come easy. After the divorce, the bank nearly took it. Mark wanted to walk away, said it wasn't worth the fight. But I couldn't let it go. I begged, negotiated, and somehow scraped together just enough to refinance. I signed the papers with shaking hands, promising myself I'd never let anyone take it from us again. That's why I couldn't shake the chill of Mark's words on my doorstep. He sounded so confident, like he knew something I didn't. Check the paperwork, his new wife had said, her smile dripping with smug certainty. But before I tell you about that storm, you should know what Mark was really like after the divorce. He wasn't much of a father, though he played the part when it suited him. He'd show up with flashy gifts, video games for Ethan, sparkly hair clips for Sophie, but disappear for weeks at a time afterward. He'd tell the kids he was working on new business ventures, though everyone in town knew he was just drinking at O'Malley's bar on Main Street. And then there was the girlfriend, Tiffany. She came out of nowhere, a younger woman with a high-pitched laugh and a taste for expensive clothes. Mark paraded her around like a trophy, showing her off at the county fair, church picnics, even parent-teacher conferences. Folks whispered that she was trouble, but Mark didn't care. I tried to ignore it all. Tried to focus on keeping my kids grounded, on paying the bills, on holding the line. But deep down, I knew Mark wasn't done with me. He never liked the idea of me standing on my own 2 feet. He wanted me struggling, dependent, easy to control. And Tiffany? She was even worse. More than once, I caught her glaring at me across the school parking lot, her hand clamped possessively around Mark's arm. Like I was some kind of obstacle she had to erase. The whispers started small. A neighbor mentioned she'd seen Mark talking to a real estate agent downtown. Another friend told me Tiffany had been bragging at the nail salon about moving into a new place real soon. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was just gossip. But the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. Then came the envelopes. Letters from the bank, notices about property taxes, reminders about refinancing. Each one sent my heart racing, even though I'd kept up with every payment. I'd sit at the kitchen table late at night, spreading the papers out under the weak glow of the lamp, double-checking numbers until my eyes blurred. Something wasn't right. And yet, I kept pushing forward. Because when you're a single mom, you don't get to fall apart. You plaster on a smile for the kids, even when you're terrified inside. You keep packing lunches, keep showing up to work, keep paying bills on time, because if you falter, the whole ship goes down. But that Saturday, when Mark stood on my porch with Tiffany, announcing that the house was theirs now, everything I'd feared came rushing into reality. It wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about dignity, survival, and proving that I wasn't the weak woman they thought I was. And deep down, I knew this storm was only beginning. The knock on the door that Saturday wasn't the last. 2 days later, Mark showed up again, this time without warning, no phone call, no courtesy. I was in the middle of folding laundry when the pounding rattled the front door like a drumbeat. Sophie jumped, dropping her doll, while Ethan muttered under his breath, "It's him again." I opened the door a crack, hoping maybe I was wrong. But no, there he was. Mark, arms crossed, jaw tight, and Tiffany standing beside him with her arms wrapped around a clipboard like she was about to close a real estate deal. "Angela," he said, his voice dripping with practiced authority. "We need to talk. Now." I stepped outside onto the porch, shutting the door behind me. My heart pounded, but I squared my shoulders. "What is it this time?" Tiffany smirked, holding up a stack of papers. "These are eviction papers. You'll want to look them over." I stared at her. "Eviction papers? Are you out of your mind?" Mark took the papers from her, thrusting them toward me. "It's simple. This house is part of the settlement. You're just squatting here, Angela. Tiffany and I are moving in, and you need to be out by the end of the month." The audacity of it hit me like a slap. My name wasn't even on those papers, just a bunch of generic legal jargon printed off some website. But the way they stood there, so smug and sure, it was like they'd already rehearsed this little performance. "You're delusional," I said, my voice shaking more from anger than fear. "This house is mine." Tiffany tilted her head, her tone patronizing. "Honey, you've been playing house long enough. You can barely keep the lights on. It's time for someone responsible to take over." My fists clenched at my sides. "Responsible? You've never worked a day in your life." Mark's face darkened. "Enough." I'm giving you a chance to leave quietly. Don't make this ugly. Behind me, the door creaked open. Ethan had slipped onto the porch, standing tall for his 12 years, his eyes locked on his father. Mom doesn't have to go anywhere, he said firmly. Mark's expression flickered, just for a second, but then he sneered. Go inside, Ethan. This is grown-up business. But Ethan didn't move. He stayed rooted beside me, his jaw set, his small fists balled. Sophie peeked through the curtain at the window, her little face pale. My children were watching this unfold, watching how I would respond. And suddenly, it hit me, this wasn't just about a roof over our heads. It was about what kind of example I was setting for them. Would I let myself be bullied into silence? Or would I show them that we had a right to stand tall, no matter who tried to push us down? I straightened, meeting Mark's glare head-on. If you think I'm leaving, you're wrong. You can wave those fake papers in my face all you want, but I know the truth. This is my home. Tiffany let out a sharp laugh, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Your home? Sweetheart, you're broke. You live paycheck to paycheck. Do you really think you can fight us in court? Mark told me everything, you don't have the money for a lawyer. Her words cut deep, because she wasn't wrong about the money. My checking account barely had enough to cover groceries and the electric bill, let alone attorney fees. For a moment, doubt pressed heavy on my chest. What if they were right? What if I'd missed something in the divorce papers, some hidden clause that gave them power? But then I felt Ethan's hand slip into mine, small but steady. His grip grounded me. I looked Tiffany square in the eye. Money isn't the only kind of power, sweetheart. You'll see that soon enough. Mark's jaw tightened. He shoved the papers into my hand, the pages crumpling in my grip. Fine. You want to play tough? Then we'll do this the hard way. But don't come crying to me when the sheriff shows up to throw you out. He turned sharply, storming down the steps. Tiffany followed, tossing one last smug glance over her shoulder. You've got no chance, Angela. Might as well start packing. I stood there on the porch, the papers trembling in my hands. My knees felt weak, but I didn't let them see me falter. Not while my kids were watching. When their car finally pulled away, Ethan turned to me, his eyes wide and fearful. Mom, are they really gonna take our house? I knelt down so I was eye level with him, brushing his hair back from his forehead. No, I said firmly, more for myself than for him. They're not taking anything from us. Not without a fight. Inside, though, my stomach churned. I knew I was in over my head. Legal papers, threats of eviction, talk of the sheriff, this wasn't something I could handle with just determination. I needed help. Real help. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with the crumpled papers spread out before me. My hands shook as I dialed the number I'd scribbled down weeks earlier, a local lawyer's office in downtown Dayton. When the receptionist answered, I cleared my throat, forcing my voice steady. Yes, my name is Angela Harper. I think I need to make an appointment. It's about my house. As I hung up, I looked around at the familiar walls of the kitchen, the drawings taped to the fridge, the chipped ceramic mug holding pens on the counter. This was more than a house, it was our life. And I wasn't about to let anyone steal it out from under us. The battle had officially begun. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark smirk, Tiffany's smug little smile, and those fake eviction papers waving in my face. Ethan tried to act brave at breakfast, shoving spoonfuls of cereal into his mouth like nothing was wrong. Sophie clung to my side, asking if she had to pack her stuffed animals. I told them no. Not yet. Not ever, if I had anything to say about it. By the time I dropped Sophie at school and Ethan at his friend's house, my nerves were frayed. I drove downtown, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. Dayton's courthouse district loomed ahead, gray stone buildings, busy lawyers in suits rushing across crosswalks, the faint smell of coffee and exhaust in the air. The lawyer's office was on the third floor of an old brick building. The lobby was small, with a receptionist who looked barely out of college. She asked my name, her manicured fingers clicking across the keyboard. Angela Harper? Yes, you're meeting with Mr. Jacobs. He'll be with you in just a minute. I nodded, sinking into the waiting room chair. The leather was cracked, the magazines on the table months old. My leg bounced uncontrollably. I kept thinking about the bill, how much this visit would cost, how many hours I'd have to work at the grocery store just to cover it. Finally, the door opened, and a man in his late 50s stepped out. He wore a gray suit that had seen better days, his thinning hair combed neatly to one side. He looked tired, but kind. Angela? I'm Richard Jacobs. Come on in. I followed him into a modest office lined with overflowing bookshelves and framed degrees. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. So, he said, folding his hands. Tell me what's going on. The words tumbled out in a rush, Mark showing up, Tiffany flashing fake eviction papers, their threats about the sheriff, my kids overhearing everything. My voice cracked as I spoke, shame burning in my chest. I hated sounding desperate, but that's exactly what I was. Mr. Jacobs listened quietly, nodding every so often, jotting down notes. When I finished, he asked, "Do you have any paperwork from the divorce? The mortgage documents? The deed to the house?" My hands shook as I pulled a folder from my tote bag. I had kept every scrap of paper since the divorce, tucked away like a lifeline. I slid it across the desk. He adjusted his glasses and began flipping through the pages. The room went quiet except for the rustle of paper. Each turn felt like a drumbeat in my chest. What does it say? I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. His brow furrowed. He flipped back a page, then forward again. My palms started to sweat. I thought of Tiffany's smug words, check the paperwork. What if she was right? What if I really had been living on borrowed time? Mr. Jacobs set one page aside, then another. He muttered, tapping his pen against the margin. The silence was unbearable. Please, I blurted. Just tell me the truth. Do they have a claim? Can they really throw us out? He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. Let's not jump to conclusions. I need to review this carefully. My throat tightened. I pictured Ethan and Sophie's faces when I told them we might lose the house. I imagined packing boxes, moving into some cramped apartment, the kids switching schools again, everything unraveling. Mr. Jacobs leaned back in his chair, flipping through another set of documents. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. For a moment, I thought I might be sick right there on his office floor. Finally, he set the papers down and looked at me. His eyes softened. Angela, do you realize what you have here? My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He tapped one of the documents, the refinancing paperwork from years ago. This deed, it only has your name on it. Not Mark's. I blinked at him, not quite understanding. Just mine? Just yours, he repeated firmly. From the looks of it, when you refinanced after the divorce, Mark signed away his rights to the property. He may not have even realized it at the time. But legally, Angela, this house belongs to you. And you alone. The room spun. Relief crashed over me so suddenly I had to grip the edge of the chair. My name. Only my name. All this time, the house hadn't just been a home, it had been mine, in writing, in law. I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth, tears threatening to spill. So, they can't take it? He shook his head. They can threaten, they can bluff, they can wave fake eviction notices all they want. But legally? They don't have a leg to stand on. If they try anything, we'll shut it down in court before it begins. For the first time in days, I exhaled without pain in my chest. A laugh bubbled up, half sob, half relief. I thought of Mark's smug grin, Tiffany's condescending tone, their confidence as they told me to start packing. And suddenly, I couldn't wait to see their faces when they realized the truth. Mr. Jacobs slid the deed back toward me. Keep this safe. It's your shield. No one can take this house from you, Angela. Not now, not ever. I clutched the folder to my chest like it was a lifeline. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt strong. And as I walked out of that office into the cool September air, I knew exactly what I was going to do next: invite Mark and Tiffany back, and let them choke on the truth. 2 days later, I called Mark. My voice was calm, steady, so calm it surprised even me. Come by the house, I told him. Bring Tiffany. We need to settle this face to face. There was a pause on the other end, then a smug chuckle. Finally seeing reason, huh? I didn't answer. Let him think whatever he wanted. When the day came, I brewed a pot of coffee and set it on the kitchen table. The kids were at a neighbor's, safe from the storm that was about to break. I wanted this conversation to be mine, and mine alone. Mark and Tiffany arrived right on time, sweeping in like they already owned the place. Tiffany strutted through the doorway, her heels clicking against the hardwood, her perfume leaving a trail behind her. Mark walked with that old familiar swagger, like he was still king of the castle. Nice of you to finally cooperate, Tiffany said, setting her purse down on the counter without asking. We've already picked out paint colors for the kids' rooms. Oh, well, I guess they won't be your kids' rooms much longer, will they? Her laugh grated against my nerves, but I kept my expression neutral. Mark leaned against the counter, folding his arms. So, what's it gonna be? You ready to hand over the keys? Or do you need me to call the sheriff for you? I slid a folder onto the table, the same folder I'd carried out of Mr. Jacobs's office. Slowly, deliberately, I opened it and spread the papers out. What's this? Mark asked, frowning. The deed, I said calmly. Read it. Tiffany rolled her eyes. Please. We've seen the deed. Mark's name is on. Her voice faltered as her eyes scanned the document. Her smirk slipped, replaced by a confused furrow of her brow. She glanced at Mark, then back at the paper, reading again like maybe she'd missed something. Mark snatched the page from her hands, his face darkening as he scanned the lines. His lips moved silently, tracing the words. Then his expression cracked, anger, disbelief, the slow dawning of reality all crashing over him at once. This can't be right, he muttered. It's very right, I said, my voice firm now, strong. When I refinanced after the divorce, you signed away your rights. This house is mine. Legally. Permanently. Yours is just a name on a memory. Tiffany's face flushed crimson. That's not possible. You can't. I can, I interrupted, slamming the folder shut with finality. And I did. This house is in my name alone. You can wave your fake eviction papers all you want, but the truth is, you don't own a single brick of this place. Not the walls, not the roof, not the front porch you tried to stand on like it was yours. For a moment, the kitchen was silent except for the tick of the clock on the wall. Tiffany's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Mark's fists clenched at his sides, his jaw working furiously. I leaned forward, looking him dead in the eye. You came here to throw me and your kids into the street. But you forgot something, Mark. I've built this life without you. I've worked for every meal on this table, every bill that got paid, every bedtime story told when you couldn't be bothered. And now, when you try to take the only thing we have left, our home, you discover it never belonged to you in the first place. Mark's voice was low, dangerous. You think you've won. I stood, pushing the chair back. My hands didn't shake this time. No. I know I've won. Tiffany grabbed her purse, muttering curses under her breath. This isn't over, she hissed. Oh, it's over, I said, following them to the door. If you come back here with more threats, I'll have a restraining order waiting for you. And the next time you try to intimidate me, remember, I've got the law on my side. You've got nothing but empty threats. Mark hesitated on the porch, his face twisted with rage, humiliation cutting deeper than any words I could have spoken. Then he turned sharply, storming toward the car. Tiffany scurried after him, slamming the passenger door so hard it rattled the frame. I stood there, watching as they peeled out of the driveway, their taillights disappearing down the street. For the first time in years, I didn't feel fear when the sound of their car engine faded. I felt freedom. Inside, the house felt different, lighter, safer. Mine. Truly mine. I sat at the kitchen table, running my fingers over the folder one last time before tucking it away. A laugh bubbled up, soft at first, then louder, freer. Mark thought he could erase me. Tiffany thought she could replace me. But all their plans, all their smug little speeches, had crumbled the moment the truth came out. This wasn't just about a house anymore. This was about finally standing on solid ground. And this time, it was ground no one could rip out from under me. The silence after Mark and Tiffany left was almost unreal. For days, my house had felt like a battlefield, full of tension, shouting, and threats. Now, it was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like peace. When I picked up the kids that evening, Ethan climbed into the car, eyes searching mine. What happened? He asked cautiously. I smiled, reaching over to squeeze his hand. We're not going anywhere, I told him. This house is ours. Forever. For the first time in weeks, Ethan's shoulders dropped, the weight lifting off him. Sophie clapped her hands, grinning so wide her little cheeks dimpled. So Sparkles gets to stay too? She asked, holding up her stuffed unicorn. Yes, I laughed, tears stinging my eyes. Sparkles gets to stay too. That night, we celebrated the only way we could afford to, frozen pizza and sodas, eaten picnic style on the living room floor. But it didn't matter. To the kids, it was a feast. To me, it was victory. As we sat together, Ethan leaned against me. Mom, he whispered, you were so brave. I hugged him tight. I wasn't brave alone, I said softly. You stood with me. Both of you gave me strength. That's what family does. The days that followed felt different. The anxiety that had lived in my chest for so long finally loosened its grip. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was planning, building, moving forward. The first thing I did was open a savings account, small as it was. Every extra dollar from my shifts at the grocery store went into that account. For years, I had felt powerless, trapped by money I didn't have. But now, with the deed in my name, I had leverage. I had security. I also called Mr. Jacobs to thank him again. "You don't know what you did for me," I told him. He chuckled softly. "I didn't do anything. You already had the power. You just needed someone to show you where to look." His words stuck with me. I already had the power. Months later, when winter came, I finally had enough saved to replace the broken furnace that had rattled for years. Watching the kids curl up in the warmth of a house that no longer leaked cold through every crack, I felt a pride I hadn't known before. I picked up more hours, then a promotion came, shift supervisor. It wasn't glamorous, but it was progress. And more importantly, I no longer carried the fear that someone could strip everything away from us. Mark tried once or twice to stir up trouble, calling with half-hearted threats, but I didn't flinch anymore. I kept records, I kept my lawyer on speed dial, and eventually, even he seemed to realize there was no fight left to win. Tiffany stopped posting her little new home mood boards online too. One evening in spring, I stood on the porch watching Ethan shoot hoops with a neighbor boy. Sophie chased fireflies in the yard, her laughter rising into the twilight air. A memory flashed in my mind, standing in that same spot months earlier, gripping fake eviction papers, my children peeking out the window, fear in their eyes. And now, here we were, still standing, stronger than before. Ethan tossed the ball, missing the basket, and came running over. "Mom, when I grow up, I'm gonna buy you a bigger house. One with a pool." I laughed, brushing the sweat from his forehead. "You don't have to buy me a house, honey. Just remember what we've been through. Remember that we don't let people push us around. Not ever." His eyes lit up with understanding, and I knew the lesson had sunk deeper than any pool ever could. That night, after the kids were asleep, I walked through each room of the house. The walls were still chipped in places, the floors still creaked, and the roof would need patching soon. But it was ours. I paused in the living room, running my fingers along the frame of a photo, me with Ethan and Sophie at the county fair, cotton candy smeared across their faces. A single mom, yes. But a mom who had fought and won. I thought back to Tiffany's words, "You can barely keep the lights on." She was right once. But not anymore. Because I had something stronger than money or smugness or empty threats. I had resilience. I had my children. And I had a home that no one could ever take from us again. In the end, the victory wasn't just about keeping a roof over our heads. It was about proving to myself, and to my children, that we were stronger than the people who tried to break us. That sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't shouting, or fighting, or even winning in court. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply surviving, thriving, and smiling when the people who doubted you realize you're still standing tall. And as I locked the front door that night, turning off the porch light, I whispered a promise to myself. This is just the beginning. If my story meant something to you, please don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who might need a little hope today, and subscribe so you can walk with me through the rest of this journey. I may be just one mom, but with your support, these stories of strength can reach so many more hearts.